adding and subtracting fractions. We'll do these together because they are related.
Welcome to Mark's Math Methods.
Adding and subtracting fractions. In order to add and subtract fractions, they must have a common denominator. Let's do some where the denominator is the same already. Notice that both of these fractions have 5 as a denominator, so that's not going to change. And then we just have to do what the numerator tells us to do. 2 plus 1, which when we do that arithmetic, we get 3. So 2/5 plus 1/5 is 3/5. Try this one. 5/10 minus 3/10. Again, the denominator is the same already. So now we just do what the numerator tells us to do, 5 minus 3. And do that arithmetic, gives us 2/10. But wait, that's the wrong answer. We forgot to simplify. 2/10 becomes 1/5. Finding the least common denominator. This is for when the denominator is not the same. It's just like finding the least common multiple. And if you forgot how to find the least common multiple, you can check out the presentation called Finding the Least Common Multiple. The primary skill required in finding the least common multiple or least common denominator, LCM, LCD, is prime factorization. And if you've forgotten how to do prime factorization, you can check out the presentation on prime factorization. So here we go. 2 where the denominator is not the same. 2/3 plus 1/6. Well, we want them to be the same. So we got to find that common denominator, which in this case is a 6. 6 is the common denominator. So we're going to rewrite each of these fractions with a 6 in the denominator, leaving the numerator blank. Now we're going to convert each fraction to this new denominator by multiplying each by a fraction. Now each one gets an individual fraction, whatever it needs. So I've used 2 different colors here. So if we look at the 3, we see that the 3 has to be multiplied by a 2 in order to make it a 6. So then we're going to multiply the numerator by a 2 also. Notice that we've actually been multiplying by a value of 1. 2 over 2 equals 1. So we haven't changed the value of this fraction 2/3. We're just changing the way it looks. So we actually multiply 2 times 2 and we get 4. So 2/3 becomes 4/6. Now we have to multiply the 6 by a 1 to make it a 6. Now, you probably don't have to do this at all, but I do it just so that I don't forget to check. So I also put a 1 on the top. Again, notice that I'm multiplying by a value of 1. 1 over 1 equals 1. So we're not changing the 1/6. If necessary, we're just changing the way it looks. And 1 times 1 is 1. So now we have the common denominator. We just have to do what the numerator tells us to do. And when we do that arithmetic, we end up with 5/6. Let's try subtraction using the same procedures. The common denominator in this case is 12. Now you could have used 24, but that wouldn't be the least. We always want to go with the least because it makes the arithmetic easier. So we write each of these fractions out with 12 in the denominator, leaving the numerators blank. So now we're going to multiply each of the original fractions by another fraction to convert. The 6 has to be multiplied by 2 to put a 2 on top, which then gives us a 10. So 5 6 becomes 10 12. What do we have to multiply the 4 by to make it 12? It's a 3. We put a 3 also on the top, and then 3 times 3 is 9. Now that we've got the fractions converted, we just do what the numerator tells us to do. And we end up with 1/12. But what if there's adding and subtracting in the same problem? The process isn't any different. You find the common denominator, which is 30 in this case. So we're going to write it out with 30s in the denominator, leaving the numerators blank. Notice that the plus and minus are in the same positions between the fractions. So we have to multiply each of these by their individual little fractions. The 6 has to be multiplied by 5 to make it a 30. We put a 5 in the top. 5 times 1 gives us 5. So 1 6 becomes 5 30ths. What do we have to multiply the 3 by to make it 30? That's a 10. Put a 10 in the top. 2 times 10 gives us 20 for the numerator of the second fraction. And we have to multiply the 5 by a 6 to make it 30. Put a 6 in the top. 6 times 3 gives us 18. Now that we have all the common denominator, we just have to do what the numerator tells us to do. 5 plus 20 minus 18, which is 25 minus 18, which is 7 over 30.
I hope the presentation was helpful. Thumbs up, subscribe, comment. And if you have any problem types you'd like me to demonstrate, there's my address.